Good morning. This is Connie Jacobson with the NEMSIS Technical Assistance Center. Thanks for joining us today, Thursday, April 20th. We are hosting a public training session, which is a Q and A with our report developers, our reporting team of Kevin White and Laurel Bader. As you heard, we are recording today's training session. Thanks to so many of you for joining us today. Want to let you know as well that Kevin, Laurel, and I are off-site at the moment, and that's because the University of Utah is having an earthquake drill, and we knew the alarms were going to go off in our building. So we are off-site a little bit today, so if you hear a little background noise, that's the reason why, because we're off-site in a public location. All right, so I'm going to get started here just a little bit, and just let you know, again, what we wanted today to be about was a Q&A. We want to learn from you a little bit about what you are interested in seeing from a national level, as well as just provide some general questions about, or at least the opportunity for you to pose some questions regarding our current public reporting tools that we have for version 2 and for version 3. Going to start with Laurel Bader with a quick introduction and turn it over to Kevin, and then we'll again have some Q&A. So this is a very interactive session today, and if you can, please mute your lines unless you're speaking, and if you do have something you want to ask that you can't verbalize, please feel free to use the chat message section. All three of us are monitoring that. All right, here's Laurel.
Hi everyone, this is Laurel Bader. So I'm part of our reporting team here. So me and Kevin are just going to do our best to answer any questions you have.
Hello everyone, this is Kevin White. I'm the senior report developer for the NEMSIS TAC. As Laurel said, we're just here today to answer any questions and get any feedback that you may have about our existing reports, or any ideas you may have for some information that you would like for us in the future. Thank you.
All right, so if anyone wants to jump right in with a question, go for it.
This is Karen. Those of you who know me know that I'm going to ask some of you specific questions. So be warned and be ready. So as you saw with the agenda that we sent out, did indicate some of the reporting tools, provided some links in the agenda so that you could access those directly. I'm going to have Laurel demonstrate right now, just as a reminder, where those tools are available if you do not have access to the agenda that is typically sent out.
Okay, so since this is our public training session, I will show you where the public reports are first. Reporting tools, reports, national reports, access reports again, and then I agree, and then you'll arrive at our national reporting page. We are in the process of building a new website where there will be less clicks to arrive at this page. So if any of you have found that frustrating in the past, we are changing it shortly.
And join us next month for the debut of the new website.
Yes, we're very excited to be able to share that with you soon. So for version 3, we have a data quality dashboard publicly available. If you're a state user, this could be useful to you to use as a comparison tool to your data that's available in the state data quality report for version 3. For version 2, we have a lot of subject-specific dashboards, geriatric, cause of injury, 911 caller complaint versus EMS provider findings, pediatric cause of injury, cardiac arrest, and that is it for Tableau reports. They're all subject specific. If anyone has any suggestions for further subject specific reports that would be developed under version 3, as we're leaving version 2 behind now, we would definitely welcome those. We also have our cube and the reporting service reports that we have used on version 2. Those are at the bottom of the page, reporting service, and then the cube is from the home page. It's reporting tools, reports, national reports, and then create a report cube is how you find the cube. And there are instructions on this page for getting in and some trainings to explain how to make use of that. So what I really wanted to take away from this was some ideas that we could move forward with to develop new reports. We've been working on version 3 a lot lately, and we'd really love to get some more public reports out, but we want to know what would be most valuable to people, or what topics that you guys think we could explore using the national data set.
And again, as Karen, I'm going to ask some pointed questions to some folks. So Ruth, because you know how I work a little bit, I'm going to start with you to say, what's going on in San Diego? What type of data do you utilize for San Diego Fire? And how, of those reports, what would you like to see available at a national level so you could do some benchmarking?
Well, good morning. Well, what we're doing out here in San Diego is we're just now transitioning onto our NEMSIS 3 platform. Our LEMSIS is also doing that, and we're reevaluating the kinds of reporting that we've been doing. We review all of our CPRs from dispatch to outcome, and then we also review all of our STEMIs, and that, unfortunately, is all that we really look at. And so we want to expand that, and a lot of that's been, limits on our ability to pull data out of our system. And I'm just here, I just want to take a look and see what can be done with the NEMSIS data set, and see, looking at the compass points, the core values, and the core measures, and I don't think I have an opinion as to what I'd like to see. I want to see what's here first, and really our emphasis is we're just trying to redesign our reports to make to be more efficient and more useful, and then we can maybe expand out and look at things other than just STEMI, strokes, and heart attacks. I mean, those are they're important things to look at, but there's so much more to look at, and that's all we look at.
Gotcha. That makes good sense. Thanks, Ruth, for sharing. So you also mentioned the core measures, which I believe is what California is looking at, correct?
Yeah, we do have core measures. I think there's about 12 of them. We report those. The county reports some of them for us, and then because we haven't been able to report our information to them, any of the reports that require times we need to do ourselves. I should also let you know that we're also just starting to get information from the HIE, our local HIE. We're testing that. We are participating in an EMS grant, a large grant that the state received from ONC. And part of that, hopefully in the next couple of weeks, we're going to be actually automatically receiving outcomes from the HIE, which is going to make our reporting so much easier. Where instead of having to request outcomes on our STEMIs and strokes, we're going to be able to just run a report and it'll be there. So that's kind of exciting out here anyway.
Yeah, that is really exciting. We will look forward to having some conversations with you about that in the near future to see how that's going, see what you're learning, and just how well that exchange is functioning. Hey, Mark, can I ask you really quick? Can you talk a little bit about the California core measures?
Well, I don't know that I'm really the person to talk about it, but other than we've been doing it for a number of years, and the LEMSIS all report on an annual basis. There's been some talk about adopting some of the compass measures that, in addition to the core measures, or where there's duplicative effort, maybe consolidating it. But that's just a project that's been going on for a number of years. And I believe the results are all published annually on KEMSIS webpage. Okay.
Well, we'll have to go out and look at that a little more closely, and maybe we can take a look at what you guys have done there. It's been a while since I've looked at that myself, but we could go to.
I know a couple other states grabbed ours and basically just crossed out our name and put their name on it and said, let's do it
Love
too.
It.
But with the move to NEMSIS 3, a lot of our core measures, well, all of our core measures have to be revisited, and that'll be part of a task force that will go back and look at what's the new elements. How do we map things over, and do any of the current ones that we have, are they replaced by Compass, etc.?
Okay, well, that makes sense. So I'm not sure off the top of my head who Dale is. So Dale, is it Nakenmus? How do I do on your name?
Yeah, that's close.
Nakenmus. So who are you? Do you work for an EMS agency? Are you doing anything with EMS data right now that you would love to see on a national level?
Just beginning to look at some of the call information that we have. Since I'm with the state, we're looking at all the various agencies, and I'm just getting acquainted with the scene information right now. But I have no specifics for you. I'm just learning about what's possible in the way of your dashboard work.
Well, that's great. So I was going to say, who else? I know we've got some other state folks who have joined our call. Jay Osby from Wyoming. Scott Beckley had been on, also from Colorado, and then we also have Charles Bikvarik from New Mexico on the call. Do you folks have any, thoughts right now about what you're doing and what you would like to see, and at a national level that you can share with the reporting team?
I'll hop in with a couple thoughts that I'd like to see, and it might be more of a functionality issue, but it can be done with a little bit of raw data. By the way, it's Jay Osby from Wyoming, and I'd like to be able to take different categories of patients, and I'm just going to pick on one patient, a trauma patient. I'd like to be able to sit there and compare scene times with delays and lowest GCS, and like to come up with we don't have it yet in EMS, injury survival scores or critical scores or something like that, and see what we can do. And when I get down to functionality, I'm kind of looking for, is there a way where you can get like first full set of vitals and selection capabilities, or last set of vitals, or lowest GCS, highest GCS, maybe create a difference between two. So if you have like 10 Glasgow coma scores documented, can you just pick out the lowest one? Is that making any sense?
Yes. So we actually have been working on a development for a specific group that looks at RTS scores, revised trauma score. I didn't say RTS scores, that's redundant. Revised trauma score. So we have done a little bit of work in looking at that kind of thing. Would a trauma patient focused dashboard under version 3, so that would be a topic that would interest you guys in Wyoming?
Yeah, it's just one of those things that, trauma patients are the big category of folks. And, are we really paying attention to it? How are we doing on our outcomes? What's doing good? And I know there's just been some research on it, but we don't have good measurements on there. And some of the measurements I use is, okay, if you have these scene times or treatment times that are above this, what was the reason? Are you documenting the reason? And that's just a documentation issue. And when we bring that out to troops, they start paying, oh, well, I was on scene for 35 minutes because I had an extrication. Well, it's nothing documented in a measurable category. So, being able to monitor that's kind of a nice idea. But it would be nice to be able to pull aggregate data and see, okay, what's the modals at other places or the fractals and stuff too.
Okay, thank you for that. That's very helpful.
You're such a giver.
Jay, this is Kevin White. In regards to your request here, is this something you're looking to? You're just starting to investigate this, correct? So you're really just starting to explore the possibilities of what you can do with this type of information. Is that correct?
I apologize. I was muted, and I wasn't sure if that question was for me or for somebody else. No,
it's
we
really
actually
for you.
Yeah, we actually take that information out, and we include a lot of ambulance information specifically to hospitals as we're doing trauma reviews for their trauma verification, for their site credentialing for their trauma level. So it would be nice if I could come up with a way to put in, and I could do it with state averages, but I'd like to be able to pick up maybe some national averages or some national components so I can give them a comparison where they're at. Does that kind of make it a little bit better?
Yeah, because I heard a lot of different, in your initial statements, I heard several different use cases. One was going to individual agencies, one was comparison. It sounded like another one was just an exploration of what could be done. It sounds like, what you just mentioned is you're looking for essentially a benchmark at a national level for some specific information related to trauma that you want to use as part of credentialing.
Or just reporting to the hospitals. I think the main point is, when you have a hospital that has 140 miles on each side of them with nothing, they're going to have different needs than a hospital that has the next doors down the road are 22 minutes, on that. So we create the reports, and when we look at them, it says, okay, this is kind of some cool data, cool information, but do we have any way to create a benchmark other places? And when you say benchmark, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say it's got to be a floating benchmark, because let's just say Houston or some of the places down in Texas that has some super trauma systems. Yori Klein's trauma system down there that she works with. They have resources, so we've got to be able to come up with a way. How can we compare the capabilities and resources of an area with another area? And maybe I expanded my original thought too.
No, that's helpful. Thank you. We should talk more offline about what we can do with that to help you out with version 3 data. Whether that's
I wish we could
a dashboard or some sort of output for you, and make sure that we get it right. Because if we create a dashboard, it may not be, frankly, something that you actually find you yourself actually find useful. You may need just a regular delivery of a set of aggregate numbers based on a very specific set of criteria.
I wish we could get injury survival scores in EMS, but we don't have the AIS coding, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think that's always going to be a challenge. Is any really meaningful outcome data is sort of kind of lost to us on this side of things.
That would be a question for Ruth. Ruth, as you start looking at the outcome data you may be getting from the hospitals, you didn't mention, you mentioned the big medical three. Obviously, trauma is probably in some of that as well. It'd be interesting to learn from you once you start receiving some of that outcome data, if you're getting information related to trauma, such as the survivals.
Initially we're, the big thing is the STEMIs and the strokes, but it would be interesting to take a look and see what information is available to us or that could be made available to us regarding survivability. We've already made decisions to take outcomes from patients after they've left the ER, just because when they're in the hospital, they can be there for so long, and to wait that long for outcome. We just decided that to take the ED discharge outcome, and that would be good for what we're doing. But I can certainly take a look and see what's available to us now, and that is something that that probably, I mean, it's there, and it's just a matter of getting access to it. Yeah.
As you said, let's start getting the data first, and then start looking at it and learn what else is available and grow it from there. I mean, that's the starting point. Cool.
Yeah. But that would be very interesting information, and probably very helpful. Yeah.
Yeah. So hearing some of the discussion and interest from others, what are some of the rest of you thinking? What would you like to see? And by the way, we're happy to pull up the dashboards that we currently have. We have, as you can see, we just highlight that. Thank you. As you can see, what Laurel has done here is highlighted contact information for me and for Kevin. We just need to add Laurel back in here, and so that you can email us. So if you have some details you would like to share, we've been rapidly taking notes, but obviously receiving an email would be beneficial for us too. But so shoot us an email, but we can open up some of our current dashboards and answer some questions that you might have about the information we're currently making available.
Okay, so I have a request in the chat to look at some dashboards, so I'm going to go ahead and start pulling those up. So my contact info is probably not going to show up on this website because we're going to move to the new website soon, we promise. And I'm all over the new website. So I'm also recently taking over vendor compliance testing as well. Now, for many of you, that probably is, you probably don't have many questions on that, but I'm going to end up in that section of the site as well. Jorge has left us. Okay, so I'm just going to open all of our public dashboards so they can start loading. I wanted to show something, a new feature that we've actually developed for the new site, but is accessible right now. So many of you have seen that we offer PDF user manuals for many of our dashboards. So for the pediatric one, if you click on the user manual link, it'll open up a PDF for you. I've got it open right now. So one of the things we did is we transitioned these documents into a format that allows for us to more easily make edits and more easily answer questions. So this is going to be our new site, and I'll go ahead and show you what it's going to look like. And if any of you were so quick as to copy down the link I'm going to, you could have access to it now. So we are going to use something called Confluence to manage these user manuals. They're going to be stored in this little space called Tableau Dashboard Documentation. So if any of you wanted to copy down this URL real quick, that would be where you get access to this. So in this group is where we have all these documentation. So if I, for example, go to the one for the 911 call complaint dashboard, we have our new logo, a nice table of contents, and at the very bottom, there's a place to enter a comment. And you can enter a comment anonymously, or I believe that there's a way to actually sign in. But if you had a question about the dashboards and it was off hours and you didn't want to send an email, we're trying to offer more ways for questions to get answered, or for commonly asked questions to be available to users, so that these are as clear and as user-friendly as is possible. So that's a new feature that we're going to look forward to bringing to you. And also on these pages, we have mine and Kevin's contact info. So hopefully, if there are any questions that you have, we can do our best to answer them. So I'm going to go over to some of these dashboards now that they're loaded. And I'm just going to do a quick overview. I'm going to have Kevin switch off with me so you don't have to listen to me talk the whole time. So this one is our public data quality dashboard for version 3. So this was designed to sort of give a little snapshot of our data quality to the public for all the states that submit to us under version 3. For a state user, it could be useful as a comparison tool. It does only show 1 week of data. So if you wanted to open the state version and pull up your state for that week, you could compare your state to the rest of the nation. This is a quality of data report, not a quality of care report. What we are checking for is whether or not things are completed in a way that makes sense. So for patient information, if there was a patient encounter, we would want to make sure that age is documented in a way that makes sense, so gender is documented, an incident zip code is documented, and those scores are just percentage amount of times that it was documented correctly versus amount of times that it should have been documented. So for age, you should have a number and then a description. So 3 weeks, 10 years, 80 years. So that's an idea of what that checks for. Cardiac arrest. If a cardiac arrest was reported, we would want to make sure that these required elements were filled out in a way that makes sense. If the arrest was not witnessed by someone, we would want to see a value that expressed that rather than a null or a not value. For system times, we were checking to make sure that you arrived after you left, so the times are not negative or zero, and they are recorded for events where patients were transported. We have an injury one, so if an injury was reported, we want to know what the cause of injury was. With some trauma criteria, checking the how well filled those are. Times for medications and procedures, and then sort of our catch-all category here. If someone marked down that it was a mass casualty, then we have a number of patients. If we're recording primary symptoms, or if we're not recording a primary symptom, then we should have associated symptoms. Same thing for impressions. Roles of people performing procedures and administering medications. All just a percentage of times that it was marked correctly. So if anyone has any questions on this one, go ahead. Great. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and go to pediatric cause of injury. I'm going to let Kevin describe this one.
Hi, thanks, Laurel. So pediatric cause of injury is a really topic-focused dashboard. It, just as the name implies, we're talking about pediatric cases where there's a documented cause of injury, and looking at in broad strokes what those causes of injuries were, and allowing for really substantial amount of segmentation and drill through into that pediatric population. As you can see, across the top, we have just some basic information on the demographics. We have this information broken out by age group as well as gender. We have alcohol and drug indicators, whether or not, and then finally we have pain medication administration. As many of us who are familiar with EMS know that there is a concern in the field as to whether or not younger children are getting administered pain medication at the same level in the same situations, and that helps us look at that in relationship to cause of injury. Then we have this large, block chart visualization down below that really breaks out the different causes of injury by the different color-coded age groups, which are across the top. So you can really drill into what is going on with each age group and then across age groups. Maybe unsurprisingly, to those of us who are, again, familiar, motor vehicle, traffic accident, and falls pretty much cover a large percentage of the injuries for almost all populations represented in this chart. And then finally, we have a little information on just looking at day and hour. How are these injuries distributed throughout the day? When do they most often take place? During days of the week, as well as hour of the day. and seeing if there's any patterns across there as well. So this is all the difference between the data quality that you just saw and this pediatric cause of injury is the data quality that was just outlined by Laurel is version 3 data. This pediatric cause of injury is currently just on version 2 data. So so hopefully in the future we will be transitioning some of this to version 2. So we just got a question. Is this intended for use by the general public? If so, it would be really helpful to have additional true layperson language used in the descriptions. Certainly that's something that we struggle with all the time. First say that yes, ideally these are useful by the general public, but our primary audiences are still people who have some familiarity with EMS. But there's always this tension between language that is meaningful to a broad audience, but still recognizable to the people who are truly concerned about this information. We always have, as Laura pointed out, we always have some documentation available particularly with our public dashboards that hopefully close that gap. But there's definitely areas that we can always improve upon when it comes to language. If there's anything that you specifically see that you think that is a bit of language or a term that you feel is too inside baseball, is the colloquial term maybe, or just too expert, please let us know. We'll look at that and see if we can't find something that still retains the meaning but reaches out to a broader audience. Back to you, Laura. Well, first of all, are there any questions about either of the dashboards that we've outlined here before we just start throwing new things up on the screen? You can either answer those in chat or just unmute yourself and speak up.
Thank you. Thank you for that comment. I'm not sure exactly who you are, CT, Connecticut. Yep. But thank you for that. I'm glad we're really happy that this works for you guys. We're always trying to make things better. So before I move off, if you guys are new to our Tableau dashboard, which it seems that some of you are, I just want to share with you that these are very interactive. So for example, on this one, if you were to select any of these age groups, it would filter the rest of the visualization. So if I click on middle childhood, you can see that it changes the view so that we can get more detail on that specific patient group. And the same is true of almost every visualization in all of these dashboards. They're all very clickable. So I would encourage you, if you're exploring this on your own, to click on things, to mouse over and bring up the tooltips, because it's one of the best ways to really dig into the data that we make available. And for example, if I select Saturday, now I can really, really get into what's happening on Saturdays with 9 to 11-year-olds. So I'm going to move on to the next dashboard. The rest of our public dashboards are all version 2 data. New developments will be in version 3, though, as that's where we're going to. Any questions, please feel free to ask. Feel free to talk over me if I talk too much. This next one is a geriatric focused dashboard. It's sort of the companion to the pediatric cause of injury. So we're looking at the geriatric age group, which is defined as age 55 and up. And Cara and I have had lots of discussions. If you are 55 and older, we're not calling you old. You're just an older adult.
This is Karen. I said, I'll be 55 this year. Maybe we should name this Older Adult Dashboard. So we had some laughs in the office about that.
Yeah. So for those of you that are a little older, for those patients who are a little older, we have a dashboard looking at what their experience is. The metrics are a little different. We're looking at times. We have response, scene, and transport time. And then we have it across different sort of urbanicity levels. So rural, suburban, urban, and wilderness. again, everything's clickable. If you want to look at what's happening in your wilderness areas, you you should be able to select that and everything will filter. But I seem to have found an error. Let me make a note of that. But then we also have top 5 causes of injury and the top 5 provider impressions. I'm a fan of looking at cause of injury and provider impressions because you can sort of see how those measures sort of correspond. A lot of our cause of injury are falls and traffic accidents, and you can see how those change with the age groups. Traumatic injury is a common impression in our version 2 data set. And then you can sort of see the other things we have available that are common. So one of the things under version 3 that will be interesting is we have we should hopefully have better data collection for maybe describing traumatic injury and definitely describing falls, so we could maybe get a little more detail. It's unfortunately kind of skewed the way our data is under version 2. We also have response mode and transport mode, so we can see how lights and sirens is corresponding. The colors on this one are always going to be linked to the age group. So if it's, you can sort of see which age groups are getting responses compared to other age groups, which responses. And then we also have the day and hour visualization. So our older adults, most commonly Friday evenings, which I believe was the same for children. Again, everything's clickable or is intended to be clickable. So if I select Saturday, everything above will change to reflect. Here's what's going on a Saturday. That's our geriatric dashboard. Are there any questions on that one?
And this is Karen. One of the things that we tried to do with this one, as Laurel mentioned, was at the top of the screen where you see the average response times and then the urbanicity. We were looking at some of the information originally, just looking at time, and really didn't see a lot of disparity on age groups in any of the categories other than the scene time. Otherwise, they were all, within decimals of one another. So what we did was we added urbanicity in here. So that's why you have those different icons for rural, suburban, urban, and wilderness. And then, of course, you are seeing a difference, not surprising, right, on what the response times would be for those. And then it is a little interesting, to see the disparity, for example, with wilderness with the age 95 as opposed to age 95 and older as opposed to 85 to 94. So we're really interested in hearing your feedback on this. And if you've looked at them before and if you've looked at the pediatrics cause of injury one, we'd like to know what you like about each dashboard from a visualization perspective, and where you think that we could improve. So we're looking for some feedback from everybody.
Okay, so hearing nothing, if anyone thinks of something, throw it in the chat, throw it in an email. We're always looking to build better reports. We can go ahead and pass that to Kevin and go. Okay, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, sorry, I didn't know if you could hear. I sent in a chat, but I'm wondering if it didn't go through. I was just wondering because I just noticed, and I joined 15 minutes late, so I didn't want to ask too many questions because I have a feeling you've probably already answered them. But you mentioned that this is Anne, sorry, yes, Vosbrink from Arizona. You mentioned that a lot of these reports be developed with the V3 data eventually also. And I was just wondering, with some of the data elements that are comparable or somewhat comparable between the two data sets, will there be a way for us to eventually, if we choose to, use both data from V2 and V3 in a graph? Sometimes I would just want to, I know kind of in my data sets what was good and what was bad data in V2 versus V3, and V3 is better, but sometimes like things like age are pretty good and incident times. So I'm just curious if there'd be a way to not just do V2 or V3 down the road, but use both of them in one graph if we felt it was comparable.
I'm going to go ahead and let Kevin answer that one because I think he has a better answer than I do. Okay.
Hi, and this is Kevin White. So we currently do not have any plans to have any dashboards that pull pull comparative information from both version 2 and version 3. Now, that doesn't mean that we can't have one. So we'd love to talk to you about that and see what you think would be valuable to carry forward from version 2 into version 3 in a visualization. As you already stated, there's some elements that are easily comparable, but there's certainly elements that are not. For example, race in version 2 is 1-to-1, while in version 3 it's 1-to-many, and in version 2 you have race and ethnicity, and in version 3 you just have race. And so that's a great example of where you would think they would be comparable, but it's actually ends up being a comparison ends up being very complex or really hard to do. But age is a great example of something that comes across just fine. People don't have multiple ages, which we hope that they don't. And so we've thought about it certainly, but we haven't planned on it. We'd love to talk to you more about what you think would make sense in a dashboard to look at version 2 versus version 3.
Thank you. Yeah, I was thinking things like urbanicity, injury, age, those kind of things. Sometimes you really want to be able to look back at 5 years, and unfortunately, Arizona, and it's my own fault, has been transitioning from V2 to V3 for almost 2 years. So my data is kind of spread out, and I'd love to be able to use them kind of together if I can for some things to get that long-range view. Thanks.
If there's definitely something, even if it's something that's specific to Arizona, yeah, because of your circumstances, it's a value really only to you. We're happy to explore it.
Yeah, so like he said, we can't take individual requests for something that's maybe specific to your state or your circumstances. We are equipped to do more than just build generalized dashboards for either the public or all states or all vendors. So if you have something you want to look at, let us know, and we'll do our best to assist you in exploring the data. And that is super helpful feedback to look at V2 and V3. That was not something that we had been talking about internally. So I really appreciate that. I'm going to move on to our next dashboard here. You see, I just did geriatric, so I'm going to go ahead and go to cardiac arrest and pass that to Kevin to do this one.
Hi again. So this cardiac arrest dashboard is also version 2 data. It's a bit of a legacy dashboard in that regard. And it's, again, topic focused, just like the pediatric. The difference here is that it's specific to a type of injury, not to a specific population. So this one has a lot more information on it that's really just about cardiac arrest. It allows us to really delve in. So we've got we've got distributions across the top in terms of times, and we have those service times. We have the different times. We have the transport time. We have the scene time. Laurel, if you would expand that so that people can see the differences, that would be great. We have a little bit of we allow you to look a little bit across months, age groups, gender groups, and as well as the different unit service levels as well. So this is much more, this is both broader, I guess, in many ways, as well as narrower than the pediatric. Broader in the sense that you're looking at all individuals, narrower in that it has a little bit, it's focused on a specific cause of injury. It's focused on a specific thing, which is just cardiac arrest. Any questions? Is anyone looking specifically at cardiac arrest in their area, or any initiatives of focus with that this dashboard would either help them with, or you see, or you're looking at a different aspect of cardiac arrest that we don't really have available here?
This is Ann in Arizona again, and it may be on here, but I know that one thing that we look at is type of CPR given, because there's a lot of CCR in our state, and I was just wondering, I think in V3 you can pick that out.
Yeah, this is Laurel. We do have better choices for type of CPR in V3.
I just think they couldn't hear you.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand.
We do have better choices for type of CPR available in V3. So this resuscitation is attempted. Viz here, the green, that was sort of the extent of what we had to work with, and they have kind of long titles that you have to mouse over to fully pull up, but these were sort of the 6 values that were available in V2. But in V3, yeah, we would be able to do a better description of that. I'll add that to my list. Okay, so let's see, I have one left. So this is version 2, 911 caller complaint dashboard versus EMS provider findings. And as you can see, there's also symptoms here as well. So this one, when it was initially developed, it was kind of more of an exploratory tool than a dashboard, because this one really provides information through making a lot of selections. So this dashboard is basically used to see a relationship between these 3 elements: what was called in, what EMS found, and what the patient's symptom was reported as. So if you wanted to compare how well these things correlate, you just make selections and sort of go from there. So if you want to know, so what's getting called in as a stroke? Well, most of them are actually strokes with the symptom of change in responsiveness, but 11% of the time the impression is fainting, so, or diabetic symptoms 3% of the time. So you could sort of see how what's called in is going to compare to what they find or what the symptoms are. And this works in all directions. So if we want to see what are cardiac arrests called in as, usually cardiac arrest, but sometimes fainting, sometimes breathing problem, occasionally traffic accident. So it's sort of used to describe that relationship. Same thing for symptoms: bleeding, traumatic injury, and falls, followed by other categories. You can also use this to select multiple items. So our selection methods, you can't just click on a single thing. You can drag a box over multiple bars to select. You can also use the control key. So if you hold down control on your keyboard and select multiple items, so if I do chest pain and cardiac arrest, then I have a selection of just those 2, and I can see how that compares. So the intent with this tool was to give a way to sort of explore these, and you could maybe take what you found here and then go into the version 2 cube and create some tables to look at those items in more detail with maybe other measures that are available in the cube. I'm going to go ahead and pass to Karin now so she can talk about what she just put in the chat.
Hey, everybody. So thanks so much for so many of you joining us today. We really appreciate it. We are working to ensure that we make sure that we're done with these trainings within an hour. In the agenda that I sent out, I included 2 links to the national subset of elements for version 2 and version 3. So Laurel's going to click on those links, and what we'll be able to see in here is, so what she's displaying at the moment is the version 2 national subset of elements. What this document indicates is the elements that are publicly available and those that are not publicly available. So what you're seeing here is items in green that are, again, are publicly available. But the key, and the reason why I wanted you guys to be able to see this, is one, a representation of the roughly 80-some elements that we received in version 2, and then recognition that with version 3, we're doubling those elements. We actually have 2 data sets for version 3.
Did I miss one?
Yep, probably. Maybe the one above it, unless I put the same one in twice. I put the same one in twice. Anyway, on the NEMSIS website, on the overview page.
Let's walk there real quick.
So if you go to version 3 and you go to actually the downloads and data set dictionaries, I'm going to think of it's the wrong page actually again. We scroll to the bottom. Wrong page. Go to the overview page. And then if you scroll to the bottom, there's, towards the bottom here, it says NEMSIS version 3.3.4 and version 3.4.0 requisite national elements. So I have a couple of documents available. So this one is the EMS data set. So you'll see it says that there's 130 or 131 elements overall. So again, we're pretty much doubling the elements. What you're going to be able to see here is what the element name is, and just some information with regards to whether it's a single select element or a multi-select element. But again, just for you to get an idea of how much more data we have at a national level. So if you have ideas of what you would like to see in some national reporting tools, reviewing those elements might be helpful for you. And just getting some ideas of what might be out there and what might be available. So.
Hey, Karen, this is Ann Vosbrink.
Or in the
hold on one second. Go ahead, Ann.
Oh, sorry, I didn't know someone else was talking. I was just wondering with the whole potential resolution where data would be the public data set would be available at the state identifiable level via the NEMSIS website. Would that mean that these nice, very pretty tools that I like a lot, actually, would be available also for the state? Like, could someone log in and then use this just to look at Arizona and make little graphs? Does that make sense, or is it only are those tools only going to be made for national login?
Well, none of that has been determined yet. So for those of you who aren't aware of the discussion, there's been a request that right now all of the NEMSIS public reporting tools are aggregate reporting tools. Within our online tool, which we frequently call the Cube, in there you have the ability to query off of census region and census division that allows you to see a grouping of states. There's been a request that as long as we aggregate the data, could the submitting state be used as well so people across the nation can get an idea of state information? So the answer, Ann, would be the thought is that if it's publicly available, that anyone would be able to select on a given state and see aggregate information, but obviously not be able to drill down to a zip code or an EMS agency level information. So that is still in discussion. No decision has been made, but aggregate information, yeah.
Yeah, and I just saw that. I thought it was pretty much out there because of the NESEMSO emailed out to everybody, the committee recommendations yesterday, I think, or the day before.
No, it was just, yeah, I saw that it came out, but I still read it as a recommendation.
It is still a recommendation. I'm just curious because Arizona's looking at making our data set, our Arizona data set, essentially based off of the NEMSIS data set as a public data set just for Arizona, right?
Gotcha.
Kind of doing it already in advance. And so I know they're looking at potentially building something or having our IT build something where people can go and do this. And I'm like, if you guys are going to do it for us and it's going to look that nice, maybe we'll I'm just curious. Because if it's going to already work that way, I really like this, what I've seen so far, and I just thought maybe.
Yeah, well, so I'm going to go to one other. Right, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, so far we haven't heard definitively from anyone saying they want to be excluded from that, but that some of that information is still new, and we won't make a big decision on much of anything until we have real permission from folks. So, or full adoption. So what I wanted to do was come down. So this is just an information. So we have data sharing agreements with many states, and Appendix A also lists all the elements, but this document has some additional information in here about public data versus the data that would be removed. And so it's broken up. It's a few pages long, but it is broken up based on the 2 different data sets. So if you scroll down a little further, Laurel, so we can get into the EMS information, so that response. So anything that's blue in this document would be removed. So we're still having conversations. So any of the geographic identifiers we're still saying would be removed. The conversation we've had is, would it be submitting state, or could we potentially, even though this document still is indicating incident state would be removed, that maybe that would be something that potentially could be considered as well. But right now, this is what's in our data sharing agreements about information that would be available in some form. And so vital sign information was questioned about earlier, and so although we say the data will be public, we're not really sure in all instances how we're going to make that data publicly available. But hey, we're about to complete the call today.